Hey guys, let's talk about adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing integers. So this is an activity that we're going to be doing it in Algebra 1 a lot. You can do these hopefully at some point in your head mentally. But a lot of times there's a lot of simple mistakes that can be made with them. So I'm going to show you how to do it by a calculator. Reason being is if we can have the calculator handle basic stuff like this, then we could start be thinking and focusing our mind on more complex problems instead of being hung up on this. So the big thing with adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing integers is when you're using a calculator, there's two different buttons that students often mix up. There's this subtraction sign here, which is a little bit longer, and then there's a negative sign, which is a much shorter. But when students look at problems, they often mix up which to use. Do they use the subtraction or do they use the negative? So we need to talk about when should we be using subtraction and when should we be using negative. And how it works is whenever you have two numbers, say 7 and 2, you always need some sort of operation in the middle, either at addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, whatever. So the subtraction's only going to come up when you're in between two numbers as some sort of operation. So in this case, it would be 7 minus 2. So when does the negative come up? The negative will only come up in front of a number. It's attached to the number, like right in front of the 7. That will always, if it's leading out front, that's always a subtraction. If you already have your addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division, and you see what you're not sure if it's subtraction or negative, right in front of the second number, that's a negative. So the negatives are attached right in front of the numbers, where a subtraction sign is going to be the operation in the middle. So if I saw say 7 plus minus 2, I know the operation is addition, so that means this over here is my negative sign, not a subtraction, because you would never have an addition and a subtraction. That doesn't make sense. So let's get into some problems here. This first one, 8 plus negative 3. Now, using the calculator is awesome because if you just type down what's on the page, you're going to get the right answer, okay? So as long as what you have in here matches there, you should have it correct. So we're going to start with 8. There's my operation, addition, and then I have, again, we just talked about subtraction or negative. Well, since I already have my addition there, I know I'm going to be working with a negative, so I'm going to hit down here a negative 3. So 8 plus negative 3 is 5. Fantastic. So moving on to the next one. So I have this sign out front. I have to figure out subtraction or a negative. Well, since it's not between two numbers, I know it's a negative 4 plus 7, which is 3. Next one. I notice here's my operation, the addition. Therefore, these are both negatives. A negative here and a negative there. So I'm going to have a negative 3 plus negative 5, negative 8. So again, just picking out where's the addition, subtraction, multiplication at. So this one, 7 minus negative 3. Now there's two things you can do here. You could type it in as is and say, all right, there's my subtraction sign. So 7 minus, and that would make this a negative 3. You could type that in and say that's 10. Or you might look at this and know, all right, well, two negatives right there, or a subtraction, a negative, that makes a positive. And you can change it and say, well, that's really just 7 plus 3. Both work. Next one, I have negative 5. There's my operation there. That's a subtraction. That would make this up here a negative sign. So negative 5 minus 3. So on this one, we have negative 8. And our last one for practice here, again, we have two signs there. You could change that to a plus, but here's my math operation. That's the subtraction, which means both of these signs are negative. So it would be negative 5, subtraction, negative 2, which we get negative 3. So that was addition, subtraction. Let's flip it over and look at multiplication and division. So with multiplying and dividing, your math operation is going to be really obvious. So multiplication, 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 division, division, division. So anytime I see one of these signs where I'm like, well, is it a subtraction or is it a negative? I already have my mathematical operation. You wouldn't have multiply, subtract right next to each other. You can't do that. So I already know all these signs are all negative. So just type it in just like you see it. 5, multiplication, -6. You get yourself -30. Next one, -6, multiplication, 7, -42. I already see my operation there, so I know these are both negatives. -12 times -4, 48. Next one, see my operation of division. -56 divided by 8, which is -7. Next one, 36 divided by -6, -6. -32 divided by -2, 16. So you pretty much can type in what you see and it will work. Now, I did just show you calculator. If you struggle with either adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing, there is nothing wrong with using a calculator. Now, some of you might be able to look at these and just be like, well, I know what 5 times 6 is. I know, without a calculator, I know that's 30, but I'm really having trouble with these positives and negatives and all that. Here's how it works for multiplication and division. You got to look at the signs of the two numbers you're dealing with, either with multiplication or division. Doesn't matter which one. What the trick is if you have two positive numbers, your answer is going to be positive. Also, if you have two negative numbers, your answer is going to be positive. So if the signs match up, your answer will always end up positive. That's why right here, -12 and -4 was a positive 48. Down here, a -32 and then divided by a -2 is positive 16. So if the signs are the same, you're going to get a positive answer. Where we get the negatives is if either the first one's negative, the first one's positive, the second one's negative, your answer will be negative. If the first one's negative and the second one's positive, your answer is negative. So if you have signs that don't agree, they're not the same, your answer will always be negative. So a positive and a negative makes a negative. A negative and a positive makes a negative. A negative and a positive makes a negative. Positive and a negative makes a negative. So if the signs are the same, you're going to get positives. Signs are different, you're going to get a negative. So some of you might be able to do these without a calculator. And I urge you, if you can do that, try it without a calculator. But and follow these rules for keeping the sign straight. But again, if you struggle with these and you make simple mistakes occasionally, again, there is nothing wrong with using a calculator. And that was adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing integers.